If you've been enjoying my stories and want to keep up to date, you can do me a favor, subscribe to my channel, click the subscribe button, and then click the little notifications bell up on the right side, and then you should get notifications when a new story is posted. My story today has to do with um, letting people know what we're doing and what's happening. Um, Sometimes we think, well, it's nobody's business what I'm doing. I'll do what I'm going to do, and no one really needs to know where I am or what I'm doing. But sometimes it's very important that people know where we are and what we're doing. This story is an example of that. A number of years ago, when some of my children were small, we were they were young. We would go snowmobiling and so we had gone. We lived in Dryden, and we went from where we lived. We went up the gravel road, and then you could go through the bush on some trails, and you get to Galwing Lake, which was uh, a big lake. I don't know, 10 miles long, maybe something like that, um, and it was probably 10 miles from our house, probably 15 kilometers, something like that. And so we had been up there snowmobiling, and there were some islands on the lake, and the islands were had rock sides. They were kind of high, and there were banks that went down to the lake, and there was a lot of snow. And we had been up there, and one day, and we stopped at one of the islands, and then we were sliding down the banks down onto the lake, and we didn't have any toboggans or anything. We were just in our ski suits, and we would slide down the banks from the island down to the lake, and it was a lot of fun. So we had done that, and a week or two later, Edith was at a ladies' retreat, and I was at home with the two children, and I was like, "Well, what do you want to do today?" And it was on a Saturday, and they said, "Let's go up to Bowling Lake and slide down the islands." I was, all right, sure, we can do that. So we took off. We got our snowmobile suits on, got the snowmobile fired up, and we went up to Galwing Lake and got up there, and there were a few at the south end of the lake. There were some ice fishing huts on the lake, people there ice fishing, and we got maybe a mile north of the last ice fishing hut, and we got into slush. And now slush is sometimes there's cracks in the ice, and the snow on top of the ice creates weight, and it pushes the ice down, and water comes up on top of the ice, and then you get it soaks into the snow on top of the ice. There's lots of ice underneath the water, but there's water on top of the ice. We got into some slush spots, and we were doing okay. But then we got to one slush spot, and when we get into that slush spot, I knew pretty soon we weren't coming out the other side. It was bigger than what we had, what we knew, and so we got stuck. And there we were, stuck in the slush. And I didn't really know how to get the snowmobile out of being stuck in the slush. I didn't have that much experience with slush. And so we were trying to clear the, the slush out of the track, and because it would just pack up inside the track, and so we were trying to clear the slush out of the track, and we walked in front of the snowmobile, try to pack some down to make a track for the snowmobile. And then I would get one of the children on the snowmobile, and they would pull the throttle, and I'd kind of push, and we try to get it going, but we weren't making much progress. And I was trying to lift up on the back to get it up out of the slush, and well, the slush, we kept messing around in there. It got wetter and wetter, and eventually uh, I got a wet foot, and I got water inside my boot, and then I knew that this was not good. because it was cold. It was probably uh, 0 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, and about minus 15, minus 18 Celsius. And now I had a wet foot, and that was not good in that kind of temperature. Uh, so we kept working, and I kept trying. We kept trying, and we just weren't getting very far. And then one time when I went to lift up on the back of the snowmobile, I pulled a muscle in my back, and then I knew, okay, now I'm defeated. I I can't get it out because now I hurt my back. I have a wet foot. Things are getting worse. And I started to think about our situation because here we are. We are 10 miles from home. It's 0 Fahrenheit. I can't walk back home with a wet foot. I'm going to freeze before I get, my foot's going to freeze before I get home. And my back is hurt. I'm not going to get the snowmobile out. And no one knows where we are. I hadn't told, well, obviously I hadn't told Edith. She wasn't home. Nobody else was home. No one knew where we were. No one was going to miss us because Edith wasn't coming home till Sunday evening. And I knew that no one would even wonder where we were until church on Sunday morning. And if we didn't show up at church on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, then people would start wondering, well, where are they? But people might assume we went somewhere else, or, I don't know that anyone would have come looking for us even then. So I realized our situation is pretty serious. Now, at the very last fishing hut, about a mile south of us, there was smoke coming out of the chimney, so I knew someone was in the fishing hut. So I told the children, you walk back to that fishing hut and knock on the door and ask them if they would help us. And so I'll keep working on the snowmobile and see if I can't do something. So I was digging, and the children walked back to that fishing hut. When they were partway back to the fishing hut, um, a snowmobile came out from the fishing hut and came up and made some circles around them and then stopped and talked to them. And and he put them on his snowmobile and he brought them back, and a couple other guys came, and they helped me to pull the snowmobile out of the slush and get it turned around so that we could go back home. One of those men said, we were looking out the window of our fishing hut and we saw these things walking on the ice. And we thought, hey, that's wolves. And one of the guys had a rifle and he said, let's take a few pot shots at them, see if we can hit them. And then he said, we looked a little more, and they said, that's not wolves, that's kids. And so he said, whoa, we're so fortunate we didn't take a pot shot at them. And he said, we came out and see what's going on, see what they're doing. And then we found out what was happening. So we came up and helped us, and we got home and everything turned out fine. However, it was a good lesson for me to let people know where I am and what I'm doing. And there's security in having people know where we are, what we're doing, what's taking place. It's okay to be independent. It's okay to say, well, I'll do what I want to do, and what I'm doing doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody needs to know what I'm doing. But on the other hand, there are sometimes when it's very important that people know where we are and what we're doing.